In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Lessons from My Mother. Lesson number 61. Getting past the hill now and just onto the last 10, 15. There are some repetitions which I'll reconcile by tying them with interviews with my friends, but I'll be done with them, I think middle of next year. I think I should be done by then with them. So 2 whole years of conducting lessons from my mother, and I'm incredibly proud of doing that. It's snowing in Montreal for the last couple of day or two, and the roads are covered in snow. So it's really beautiful what I'm seeing. So that's why I thought, why not just do it in the morning? Today's lesson is about group dynamics, social cohesion, self-esteem, finding your place in the world, self-respect, all these things. And it's a very important lesson because I certainly needed it at multiple times of my life. And I'll share 3 stories of my childhood and even teenage years, and then I'll explain how this lesson helped. So the lesson is: do not pay for the group, which means if you're at a dinner with a group of friends, or at lunch, or at the movies, or at a sporting event, don't say, "I got this covered." No. Don't do that. Do not do that. Pay for yourself. If you invited someone, offer to pay for them once. Shall I cover you? No? Okay. That's it. Regardless of how much money you have, what was the point? Because I would say to her, because when I was in England as a teenager, I was earning good money in a call center. And she said, no, regardless of how much money you have. And I went to Turkey and I had some good money. And she said, no, it doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is the principle behind it and how it influences you. So let me lay out 3 small stories from my childhood, and I'll tell her, and I'll then explain how this lesson tied into it. When I was 5 or 6, my parents moved me and my eldest brother to the school, which is very popular in Pakistan, called the City School. And I was new in class. I was the smallest. I was the youngest. And everybody knew each other. I was the new kid, and I was like, where am I? What's going on? So after a while, I've always been a fast runner. I've always been a good speaker. So I would do those things, but I didn't get that group respect, so to speak, at 5. Of course, children are somewhat aware of it, 5, 6, 7. So my brother used to have this huge toy army of soldiers and a plane and a tank. And I would steal his soldiers, like just pick them up and go to school and give them to my friends. Here, I got this for you. And they were like, okay. Oh, Ali got me a soldier. So now Ali can hang out with him. Oh, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to play over there. Okay, I'm coming too. Almost as if I have a sense of entitlement because I gave you a soldier. Well, at least the least you can do is call me over to play with you, right? And I remember, I think I was 6.5, 7, and my mum and my brothers came, and I was forcing this one kid, like, take this. I'm giving this to you. Take it. And my mum was like, what are you doing? And my brother was like, that's my toy. I was like, and then they all complained to my mother, Auntie, he beats us up when we don't take his toys. He hits us and he does this and he does that. I was like, bro, I thought we were friends. What are you doing? And it was so interesting. And my mom obviously reprimanded me in the car and at home. And she was like, why were you giving your brother's toys to these kids? And I was like, I don't know. I wanted to give them toys. And then she understood that he's 7. He's not going to understand the deep psychoanalysis behind it. But she explained that, look, if you want them to like you, They won't like you just because you give them toys. They'll like you because of who you are. If they like you because you give them toys, that's not real authentic feeling. Because one day you will stop giving toys because you don't have infinite amounts and they're not yours to begin with. Then what happens? It's the same as giving people money. If you keep giving people money, they're nice to you. When you stop, what happens? So real friendships aren't built like that. And she'd say that. And then she guided me in the direction of, if you're going to befriend someone, you're a good student, always befriend the best student in class. So that was her way of, because my elder two brothers were in years next to each other, so they would kind of watch each other. There was a checks and balance, self-policing going on. But I was a few years younger, so they wouldn't watch me, and I always worked fast, and I was always quick, so I would finish my work and then distract people and then get into fights and run around the classroom. I was that kind of energized um, child. So, so she directed this innate desire for friendship that people have towards, okay, go after the best one because at least they're going to benefit you, and then you won't be bribing them anyway. So maybe the best performing student in class is going to get you to elevate your game even further. Iron sharps iron. And that really worked because I would be in the top 5 people, typically in a group of 30, 40. And then when I started befriending the best one, it would the top 2, either me or the other one. And it was a great motivator. So because she knew, look, today it's army soldiers, tomorrow it would be something else, then it would be something else. He's going to try to give to receive. That's the model he's trying to follow, and that's a broken model. But how do you teach a 7-year-old that you have self-esteem and that you matter? Because my parents were very encouraging, but just because you give a speech on stage, or you're the fastest runner in class, or you score the highest marks, doesn't bring you friends, you know? So popularity and excellence aren't always intertwined. In fact, I would say at most instances, they're counterproductive, popularity and excellence. So that was one story. Then I was moved to another school around the age of 12. And this was an all boys school. I think it was a financial reason or whatever. We were moved to this school. My first one was co-ed, so we were surrounded by boys and girls, and they were from educated families, and they were from upper middle and upper classes, and one of the highest tuition fees in the country. It was that kind of a school. And then we moved to this all boys college where students would come from families where nobody's ever gone to school. They're in the blue collar labor trades and the workers, and they speak a different language, and they eat different food, and they dress differently, and they fought with people from different classes. It was very common. And I was moved there, and I was baffled because I came from a class of 30, 35 to a class of 68. 68 all boys, all 12, 13, sweating, growing, hitting puberty, getting aggressive. And I was from this, for lack of a better word, private school type of education, and just staring at, what is happening? What is happening? Good Lord. And what I started doing is, again, I looked at who the class monitors were and who the top scorers were. The top scorers were typically the class monitors, kind of went hand in hand. And the teacher sat me next to them because I was the new kid, like, sit with them for a month and then you learn how things are. And I was like, okay. And those guys were nice to me. They were gentle and nice. The first, second, third scorers of class. And I was sitting next to them. And they won't speak to me after a while. I was like, where are you having lunch? Oh, we're going there. Oh, can I come? No, we have a capacity. Because they were like, our responsibility is just to guide him in class. Why is he trying to be friendly with us? So what I ended up doing, I used to steal Archie comics, and I've mentioned this before. I used to steal Archie comics from a lovely bookstore called All Bookstore in Islamabad. I would steal them and I'd read them at home, and I'd stick them under my shirt and I'd just take them out because there were no tills and there were no what's the word? Detectors? Am I looking for another word to detect shoplifters? It would have to be by eye. And I had built this trust enough where I would just steal and just go home. And many times, if I was done with one, I just return it and take another one and go back. I was that kind of honorable thief. Like, I'm done with this one, I'll return it. I'll take the other one. I used to use the store as a library. And what I started doing was I started taking Archie comics to school. And while we had finished classwork and we had nothing to do, people would be jumping around. I'd slip it out of my bag and start reading it. And if you know, Archie has these wonderful drawings of boys and girls. And at that time, let's say 1999, 2000, boys of that pubescent age didn't really have access to images of attractive women because you couldn't advertise it on billboards in Pakistan. We didn't really have the internet. You couldn't buy books for it. And you couldn't watch those in the cinema because you were too young. You couldn't watch it at home because your parents would beat the hell out of you. So there wasn't really an avenue. And I would take it out, and there would be Veronica and I can't remember, Betty or whoever, and they'd be dressed in a certain way. And my classmates were like, "Oh, who's that?" And normally there's one picture when you see something like that. But at that time, it was an Archie comic. It was, I don't know, 60, 90 pages, and they'd flip through and they said, "There are girls in here. Wow, Pasha," because my surname's Pasha. "Pasha, do you have another one?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And I'd give them my comics. And I had one, and I was like, "No, I'm reading this." And as soon as I'd finish, I'd just give them that one. I ruined the top 3 scorers of class in my second month in the school for the full term, because instead of writing, they'd be reading my comics within the book, and the teacher would say, "What are you doing?" "Nothing, sir, just reading my notebook." And that's it. And they do that. And I don't apologize to you guys. Okay, it was your decision. You were grown-ups. But I do understand, because it was a huge distraction. Invariably, I ended up being in the top 5, top 4 because of them, and because of how I was raised and how hard I worked and being around them. But I kind of ruined them. And when my mum found out, well, we all got better after that semester, but that first term I was there, I would buy 5 or 6, and they would say, "Oh, I've read that one. Do you have another one?" I'd give them another one. And they say, "Oh, I haven't read this one." And then they just start reading it. And they'd ask me if they could take it home. And I was like, "No, I have to take it home. No, I can't give it to you." And I'd take it back. So they couldn't take it home. But as soon as they'd come to school and they'd be excited, like, "Oh, do you have a comic?" And I'm like, "No, don't have any today. I just have one for me." "Oh, can I read it while you do this?" I'll give you my work. I've finished my work. I'll give you my work." It became that sort of a trade. And I started creating my value with them. And then when the comics stopped, I had built enough value to transfer it. When my mum found out, she was incredibly disappointed. She said, "Look, this isn't a friendship based on honesty, integrity, and trust." Because by this time I was 12, 13. So I could understand some concepts more than when I was 7. She said, it isn't based on that. You're giving them something of entertainment, so they're giving you trust. It isn't mutual. Stop offering things that they don't have just to get support and friendship in return. Try to stand on your own merits. And I'm like, okay, fine. And she'd confiscate all the comics. I'd just go steal new ones. I'd just go and I'd just take a few ones, and I'd leave them at school. And then I remember I started saying, "Yeah, you can take this one home." Because I knew if I brought it home, my mum would find out. So that went on for, I think, 6 months or so. But by that time, I had crafted my place in the classroom, and I was one of the top 5. And he's this, he's that. He hangs out with that crowd. But what she said really stuck with me about trust and authenticity and self-respect. And she said, "Look, you're giving them something of enjoyment. That's why they're valuing you. Do you want to be valued in this manner, where your value depends on what you are just giving rather than who you are?" Because if you're giving love or laughter or interesting stories or information, that makes sense because it's intrinsically tied to you. But these are objects. It's the same story as those toy soldiers which you used to give before. Why are you doing that again? And she wasn't angry, but when I was younger, she was angry. But at this age, she was trying to get me to think along these lines. Like, what are you doing? And I don't recall, because it was a long time ago, over 20 years ago, but I don't recall why the magazines stopped, but they did stop very quickly. And then 2 years after that, we had moved to England. Again, a whole new school, 14 years old, back to co-ed with northern British folk of Scunthorpe. If you know anything about North Lincolnshire, you know that's a whole other breed of person. Just like people in Yorkshire, just like people in Newcastle or Liverpool, Lincolnshire is a whole other breed of people. And Scunthorpe, I was confronted by 1,200 Caucasian white students, and I was the only person who wasn't Caucasian white, and a Chinese girl, Becky Wong, who's ahead of me. But by that time, I had understood the idea of not offering material to other people, materialistic value. But I still tried to craft myself and differentiate myself in the manner of, I used to do Tai Chi and I used to do Kung Fu, and I would do it in front of people to show them, look, I'm this wonderful martial artist. A, so they won't pick a fight with me, but B, also, oh, look at him, I'll do a flip, I'll do this. That would happen. And I used to practice bits of astrology. I used to do palmistry. There were things that I would do which would differentiate me. And I would say, and I would remember people's birthdays. I would either find them out somewhere or just guess them. There's so many birthdays I would just guess. And I don't know how I guessed them at that time. Later I figured out, okay, there's probably an astrological aspect. But I guessed so many birthdays, and others I would just read off or just ask them and remember. And I'd be like, oh, is your birthday July 15th? And they're like, how did you know? And that was adding value and building fake self-esteem, because you're not offering the truth. You're offering magic and a web of lies, so to speak. But at least I wasn't offering material wealth. But I'd come and tell my mother, and she didn't really counsel me at that time. She was like, okay, just make sure if you're doing this Tai Chi, whatever, don't fight with anyone. Yeah, the rest is fine. And I tell her, oh, I did palmistry today, I did this today. And she's like, okay. And I know she was 100% concerned about how I'm going to grow up, what I'm going to do. But she was like, okay, if this is what he's adding, because he's the new kid in school, again, he feels like he needs to bring something, because you can't just join school and say, I want to be the most popular or the best student or blah, blah, blah. You can't just do that. So you need to bring some value. He feels that need. Okay, this is fine. And then I went to university in Turkey, again, a new place. I remember I found a group of Pakistani students in Turkey. And I remember for the first month, it went back to the same default measure. The same default measure where I would try to pay for stuff. Oh, it's 9 of us going to the cinema? I got it. I'll cover it. And some people were like, okay. Others were like, no, what are you doing? Why would you? I can cover the whole group. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And I never psychoanalyzed it at that point, but in the recesses of my mind, it would be, oh, that's the value I'm bringing. I'll be valued by the group. Otherwise, why the hell would they hang out with me? And that indicates low self-esteem, right? Because you don't feel that you yourself are enough for other people to be around you. And I would pay for people's food. Like, I'd buy a sandwich and they'd buy, like, it's okay, I got it. And they're like, okay, but that's not sustainable, and that affects your self-esteem even more. And I remember I told my mum about it just once over the phone, just the first 2 months I was doing this, and told her, and she said, it's the same thing. You're doing the same thing. Why do you feel the need that if you don't pay for the group, they won't hang out with you? And I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to do something nice. I was deluding myself with positive sounding words, which a lot of us do even today, right? I was deluding myself with positive sounding words and saying, well, I'm just trying to do something nice. You said, no, you can do something nice. You can help them carry their bags. You can be on time. You can laugh at their jokes or tell them good stories or hang out with them, or whenever they go to eat, you can eat with them or you can play sports with them. Why do you feel the need to add value through material means? Why do you feel the need to do that? And I said, I didn't know. I didn't know. And she said, don't do it. It's the same thing. You've done it before, and I've told you the same thing. You yourself are enough. And I remember she said it over the phone, and I had a mobile phone by then, and I was like, yeah. And she said, you yourself are enough. So one day I stopped paying for the group. I remember it was late 2008. I stopped paying for the group. Around this time, but 15 years ago, I stopped paying for the group. And people were like, Ali, and nobody ever says, oh, so are you paying for everyone? You do it, I'll do it. And I didn't do it. And I remember some people were like, the bills. And they looked at me like this. And then they just paid their bills. And I was just like quiet, and I was checking my phone. And nobody said, hey, Ali, the bills are here. Are you going to do it? Nobody does that. Okay, group dynamics. And they all continued to hang out with me because they liked my company. And then in studio or in other parts of my university experience or at the workplace, I didn't offer any money ever. And particularly, I also went through periods of poverty. But I didn't offer any money, and there were people who were genuinely interested in being in my company. But I'm not adding any value. I'm not paying for your ticket. I'm not buying you food. I'm not letting you crash in my house. I'm not doing anything of that sort, right? But you're still hanging out with me. That means I have some value. I have some self-esteem. I am of some sort of importance to the others. That's so interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. And the friendships that were built after that have been friendships that exist even today. So Mo and Xenia and Ece and Renato and Nuran, these are in Turkey. And then out of Turkey as well, there are so many people like Joe and Reem and Anthony. And there's so many friends, thank God, that I have in different parts of the world. Rich Stevens, obviously, and Hindul, Aamir, all these people where I've never said, oh, I'm going to pay for it. No. And they're still friends. And they're deep, strong friends. From the younger age, I just have two really good friends. And I've in fact borrowed money from those guys, Neil Murphy and Balu Lange, two of my closest friends, who I've known for 20 years now. I haven't really been paying for them, but they're still so close to me. So the value I'm bringing into their lives is not financial. And it's not, oh, he makes me laugh, or he buys me things, he lets me crash at his place. No, it's none of that. It's a genuine friendship. So once that behavior was completely nipped in the bud, completely, due to periods of poverty and my mum giving me the same advice as an adult, where it finally reached me and I said, you know what, you're right. Why do I feel the need to do that? Maybe I have low self-esteem because of various reasons, or I'm jealous or competitive and I want to do this, and I feel like I need to add some value or perform in order to gain something in return. And my mom was like, no, you're enough. Just accept that. Because when I was 20, 21. And by that time, she was like, no, you're enough. And that's it. Just accept that. Don't feel like you have to try hard to be something else. This is enough. Don't pay for the group again. Do not do it. And I have to say, there's only been a couple of instances. Either it was a birthday or it was a job, like a first salary, where I took some friends out and said, this is on me. But otherwise, for example, my 25th birthday, I can't remember how many, I think 30, 35 people showed up, and they played laser tag and they went go-karting, and then we had a huge KFC feast. I didn't spend a single dime. I remember my friends were like, no, it's your birthday. 35 people ready to pay for you and help you and join you in your joyous occasion. And I absolutely loved it. The same was in Oxford. It wasn't 35 people, it was around 10, 15. But they were all there and they brought me gifts and I hadn't paid for any of them. And it's the same here. I have friends who show up to my birthday and parties and they want to be there and even though I'm not giving them any money, because they genuinely like me and want to build friendships with me. And that's the same that applies to every human being across the world, across history, right? But the lesson is almost cyclical. You feel that you need to do something in order to garner friendship, and that will fulfill the gap in your low self-esteem. But you need to fill your self-esteem on its own so the right people will be attracted to you regardless of the money or value you add. So it's almost cyclical, right? And as a child, there should be ways where you can educate the child in thinking, no, you're enough. And I have to say, my parents raised me really, really well. Very valued, never neglected. I'm very grateful for that. But sometimes it's a natural thing. I'm very competitive. And I have two elder brothers, and I would always feel, oh, why do they have this and I didn't have that? Why do they have a toy and I didn't? Maybe it came out of that. Maybe it came out of being hyper competitive or whatever. But the lesson was fully grasped in my 21st year of life. When I saw it, I was like, huh. And I do understand. We do it even today. You go somewhere at a party, you don't know anyone, and you try to tell a story, and you try to tell a joke. We try to socialize ourselves. That's perfectly fine, as long as it's not intrinsic and essential to your self-esteem, and as long as it's not material. You're not, hey, take my coat so you like me. Hey, take my money so you like me. Don't do that. And don't do it for a group of people. Try to be who you are and just be alone, accept it, and try to put that out into the world. If you have a lot of money, don't say, I got this. If you've invited friends out, if they're genuine friends, more often than not, they're like, no, why are you paying? No, we'll split. But if you insist, do it once or twice. Don't do it every day. Don't do it every week or every month. Don't tie your value to what you provide to them. Tie your value to who you are completely, right? So I think that's why I said in the beginning, it's a deep lesson which took me a while to fully learn. And what I appreciate about my mum, amongst a million other things, is her consistency. The lesson didn't change. It was the same when I was 7. It was the same when I was 13. And it was the same when I was 21. Only since the receiver was growing up, it was changed for me. It was refined and it was expanded, and I became more aware of it as I grew up. And which goes to show that some lessons are meant for some points of time. Maybe I can dive into this at another point. But a 7-year-old may not grasp the concept of sharing like a 21-year-old. So some lessons are specific for some times. But I'm going to stop here. I think it's a very important lesson not to pay for the group and to understand that your self-esteem is intrinsic, and it's not about what material value you add to other people or what you add to other people, rather than who you are. It's not outward, it's inward, right? And it's balanced, it's not dynamic. So I think that would be the message that my mum would like to say. And I think it's a fantastic lesson, even today as a grown-up, and for children and for anybody all across the world. I think it's an intrinsic lesson. But thank you so much for joining me for half an hour of me talking about moments of time from my life. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week ahead, and I shall see you